Web3 represents a new phase for the internet, one that is powered by blockchain technology, which enables decentralization and token-based economies. I'm Víctor Muñoz, developer advocate at Metis, and what I have learned will make you wonder about our future. I'm excited to introduce the Web3 Devs podcast. Pavel, I'm so excited that we are having this conversation today at the Web3 Devs podcast because you were one of the people that kind of onboarded me to Web3 like kind of full time and also on like the DevRel side. So I wanted to, talk more about DevRels in general and your experience, obviously, from going, as a Web2 developer to Web3 developer to DevRels. Would you start by sharing, of course, introduce yourself, but also sharing about like how does that journey been for you?
Absolutely, yeah. I guess it started, I would say, all the way 2017,
Okay.
where I did essentially long presentations and workshops and um, keynote speeches regarding just Ethereum in general. So the designs of Ethereum, so more in like the developmental perspective. I did this um, for a company called CryptoChicks, and essentially they contracted me to do presentations for either different projects or different even governmental organizations. I think I did one uh, for the Fort McMurray, um, and essentially those were like 3 hour presentations on everything from DeFi to just how transactions work. So that was really what got me into just exploring the in-depth aspects of um, any type of like blockchain systems. So primarily Ethereum. So from there on that journey, I got onboarded onto Metis, and Metis was as the I guess ambassador coordinator, making sure that all of the information that was relayed for people within the ecosystem is correct, and it's not, making sure that the correct terminology. People like to use miners and validators and all of these things and sequencers interchangeably, and so making sure that people knew the correct definitions and everything was represented accurately. So having like a knack for just the correctness. And then from there, it was working primarily as the integrations lead, so talking with
Mhm.
projects, so a little bit more higher level in terms of the discussions, and then trying to get different types of core infrastructure onboarded into the Metis ecosystem. So a lot of that has been progressing more and more. I did found a startup related to um, I would say like DAO management and which then evolved into an influencer marketing platform, which completely different things, but it's a lot of the same tools of organizational management really relayed for that, and I built large portion of that for the at least understood certain mechanics, which then allowed me to build um, uh, the product. And then finally, I'm right now in ZKM as um, as the developer relations lead, and essentially exploring the ZK space, and primarily in the aspects of cross-chain bridging, even bridging ecosystems outside of just the EVM, using ZK proofs as the main method of communication between the different blockchains. So that's a bit of my journey, I guess, how I am uh, today. But but yeah, it's quite an interesting one. Of course, like it sounds pretty linear, but there's has been a lot of a lot of other things like on the side. a bit of governance here and there, um, a bit of the let's say a bit of other areas of interest as well. So
You know, I
glad
think
to.
that the fact that you were like a founder is definitely kind of not linear, like in between, right? Because we can talk about that later if you want, because it's very interesting. Because the journey
Mhm.
of a founder is like going from 0 to 100 in, an amount of time that is insane for, regular folks to kind of, get their mind around. Uh, but I was wondering, okay, and also I have like many questions regarding like the DevRel side. But first, I
Mhm.
want to take a step back once again because you mentioned that you started like kind of doing some sort of outreach and teaching about like Ethereum. But how did you even get there? Where did you learn about Ethereum? What was kind of like the context? And how would you recommend for people that are newbies, like they are interested in blockchain technology to get started, like learning about these kind of things?
Yeah. Um, in terms of the where I started, or how the resources that were present at the time, I think that was maybe 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, which definitely I think there has been a lot better ways to get started. But at least how I got started was uh, crypto zombies. I don't know if you've heard of that smart contract developments. Just trying it out yourself, and then how the internals work. Like I'm the type of person that I would learn more by doing. And I think a majority of people are like that as well, right? We can all like read about it and then just maybe understand it on the academic level, but it's one thing to do it that way, and it's another thing to, what if I, you know, why can't I put an image on the blockchain? Like, why not? And then you go through that process, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna upload, a megabyte. Um, and you realize that the gas cost for this is going to cost like $32,000 or something like that. So
Yeah.
and then you're like, okay, well, then how do NFT collections exist if images are not on the blockchain? Oh, okay, well then they store their images off chain or somewhere like in IPFS. So you essentially go through a lot of the like questions that the people have, or like you would have. It's like why can't I just do it this way? And then you end up doing it that way, and then you're like, oh well, that's why, because it's either expensive, or it takes like a lot of time to get everything set up to this way, um, or there's a variety of different reasons. So I guess the primary resources that I used to learn was crypto zombies was a good start. There was also the um, Ethereum beige paper, which was, I think, a really good resource just to understand, um, basically at a high/low level. It's like a dumbed down version of the Ethereum yellow paper, very simplified, but at the same time very informative of just how these uh, blockchain systems work. And I think I still highly recommend just giving that a read, because
Mm.
um, it's a bit more understandable than the lower level of the Ethereum yellow paper, of the implementation of the EVM, because a lot of applications stem from the EVM, um, and a lot of the logic behind a lot of these like blockchains also go in and say, the EVM is good for this thing, but then I'm building Move VM, and that's completely different, and it doesn't have the same limitations as Ethereum. But then you want to understand, what does Ethereum have, and then and work past it from there. So the Ethereum beige paper and crypto zombies, I think, were the two most impactful for just the understanding at the fundamental level, and everything really stemmed from those systems. But then there's definitely other more other better resources that likely exist and likely in a bit more of like a watchable context on YouTube
Yeah.
and such.
Yeah, no, like right from 6 years to now, like the amount of material published, it's amazing. And even the Ethereum Foundation, the Ethereum page now has like an amazing documentation,
Hmm.
and all of these YouTube videos that are amazing. So yeah, fully on board. And actually, I learned Solidity through Crypto Zombies. So I guess that everybody kind of starts there, at least in the older generations, I would say. Uh, so now I'm thinking about DevRels. What is a developer relation in your view?
I think it's well, there's different answers, but one of the more funny ones is it's like marketing in a hoodie in like a it's like how, like you essentially go in and you speak, let's say, the developer language, and then the idea is you are giving a aspect of, let's say, you're sharing information in a way that other people can understand. And your target audience is developers. And you want developers to, let's say, know and understand maybe a certain aspect about the project, like why it's important to learn, what makes it something that is worth their time. I think like all crypto companies have someone for developer relations, specifically because a lot of the products that crypto companies have are either blockchains or infrastructure for blockchains. And so from there, the target user for their applications are going to be developers. So I think that is what um, DevRel is marketing in a hoodie. There's like it's like interacting with developers, coming in with essentially new ways um, to do, let's say, so existing new ways to do what developers already do, but maybe in a better way, rather than saying like, hey, read this entire paper on moon math and then you'll get what we do. It's like developer
Yeah,
relations are more in the don't worry about all the excess details or whatnot. Just focus on this aspect, and here's why it's important, and here's why it's worth your time. And then um, from there, the people will stem and essentially grow towards that direction, which essentially saves them the most amount of time and has the least amount of work to get started. And I think that's where like a lot of the tooling for developers really evolved is you have like a scaffold and you have
mm,
Foundry and you have all these tools that really save developer time. And then people developers are, I, I would say, um, wanting to do things in the easiest way possible, because that's primarily, there's a lot of code out there, and you don't want to dig through essentially hours of documentation and try to figure out applications unless it actually has like this benefit or saves you a tremendous amount of time in the future. So that's really like the balancing between um, attracting developers and saving them time. So that's
yeah,
really like
that's
the
a
balance.
yeah, that's a great point. And you're making it, you're sharing something that I think is very important for everybody who's listening this, which is that DevRels are here to onboard developers, and on that onboarding process, we have to make things easy and digestible for developers. We don't want them to be grinding on things that are irrelevant. We want them to be building and doing things and keep the focus on things that are really important, right? That make a high impact. So that's a great point. And I was wondering, actually, related to this, what are like kind of like the main lessons that you have learned from doing DevRels at CKM?
Yeah. So one of the main points that I learned is there are different ways to get developers, and what developers themselves are interested in. Developers are like car mechanics, so they're people that can build different things if given a formal specification. If you tell them exactly step by step what needs to be done, or you have adequate documentation that essentially goes into depth on like what's step one, step two, step three, then developers are more likely to go in and do it. There is also the what is worth their time when any type of new product comes out, right? There's always that barrier. Um, if let's say you have a product that has a new language or a product that has just like a new addition to what people are familiar with doing, um, it's pitching, saying that this application is going to maybe cost a bit of time to set up, but it's definitely worthwhile to learn in the future because this will be present in all applications.
Mm,
But to that's a really big claim, so you have to substantiate that um, with good amounts of backing. So one of the things that we're doing is we want to not necessarily at ZKM we don't necessarily want to attract developers themselves, right? It's kind of like um, calling car mechanics to build a car. Um, they likely can, but why? Why? Like, what's in it for them to do it? And if it's just a regular sedan that is already built by like all the manufacturers, nobody's going to do it. But in the aspect of if you're going to, let's say, build a car that breaks the ground speed limit, um, or build a car that allows for secure transport of goods, and that has not been built before. And a lot of, I would say, companies are relying on this on this, let's say, tool. Then that is something that developers would be more attracted to building on top of. So, for example, one of the main problems in the industry is the idea of cross-chain bridging. I think
mm,
the top three hacks currently on that have happened in the ecosystem that have like $1.5 billion essentially has been lost is due to bridge vulnerabilities. And I think
yeah.
like over the out of the top 10, there's a lot that have been um, based on bridges. And so that's still an unsolved problem. Everyone's sort of been looking the other way, um, because it's like I guess it's also the well, if it's done this way, and oh well, a few $1 billion here and there, what's crypto? But I think that it's still a big problem that definitely needs solving, definitely needs people working on this. And so we want to attract more of the research crowd, maybe the people that are
Mm,
building out the
interesting.
the cars themselves, like the schematics for the cars. And then from there, developers are going to see the specifications that are involved, the advantages, the disadvantages, and sort of provide like a clear perspective on what they're actually building. And then at that point, it's like, wait, why not build it? If it's already written down, if it's already specified, if there's clear advantages to using it this way, and the advantages outweigh whatever exists today, then why not spend time and effort into building out this product that can potentially be worth many billions or even trillions in terms of the usefulness, because there's already billions and in different assets and different networks.
Mm,
Like, why not share that across all different networks in a
mm,
secure fashion?
interesting. So I guess for your answer, this is kind of the thing that you're focusing in with CKM because we haven't talked about this here on the podcast, but can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the main um, one of the main technologies that we've created was the concept of the entangled rollup.
Mm,
That itself might not mean a lot in terms of the context. Is kind of like, oh, what is that entangled roll? That sounds complicated. But what we're trying to show is that there are rollups, optimistic rollups, ZK rollups, hybrid rollups that adopt both of those. Um, why not leverage what already exists, the technology that already exists in terms of the layer twos, the optimistic rollup, the ZK rollups, and add an additional functionality to them that enables trustless cross-chain bridging, and then having this infrastructure be used as a staple to communicate between the different ecosystems via layer twos. So that's one implementation, for example, is the entangled rollup, is that we can essentially take the layer twos and communicate directly with them
interesting.
without having a intermediary blockchain in between that would add additional trust assumptions, essentially making it you know the uh, increasing the attack vector. We don't really know how decentralized any of the bridges are. We only know like what the multi-sig has, if there is a multi-sig, but we don't know who owns the multi-sig. It could be just one person. And adding any form of trust assumptions to any system, especially one that manages a lot of funds, just um, goes and adds so much more vulnerability aspects to it, such as what happened to multi-chain, where one person got essentially taken by I think it was the CCP, and then essentially forced to withdraw all of the assets. So if you have additional trust assumptions, that would mean that there are these additional vulnerabilities, and that can endanger essentially not only the people's livelihoods that are transferring the assets, but also endanger the lives of the people that are building these protocols. So I think it's quite essential to have these types of systems for the safety of assets that are on these networks. And so, having this entangled role maybe as the first architecture to
Mm,
demonstrate this relationship of trustless cross-chain bridging. There's also the ability to extend it with other aspects like liquidity optimization, like
mm,
privacy aspects, where you can make trustless cross-chain transfers in a way where you don't know that you made that cross-chain transfer up until
mm.
that transaction is executed. Um, so there's definitely more of this being documented um, that I'm working on currently. But of
Okay,
course,
sounds
like
exciting.
the main thing is we want to attract more people to build this architecture and hopefully make it a better and more secured ecosystem for all blockchains and increase the UX of doing cross-chain transfers.
Got it, got it. I understand now why is it that at CKM is so important that you guys not only really attract developers but also like researchers, right? Because you need to explore all of these use cases and you have to make sure that you didn't leave anything obvious outside, right? So it's very sounds challenging. It sounds very interesting. And I am going to invite you to another episode so that we can dive deeper into like kind of more of the technical stuff. Right now, for this episode, I just want to conclude by asking you a question. Well, actually, kind of a piece of advice for people that are watching this right now and they are developers and they want to become like DevRels, right? So, what would be like the steps necessary? How would you approach that if you have to start from scratch? What are kind of the things that you would suggest?
Mhm. I think fundamentally DevRel is marketing. So just understanding how um, it's targeted marketing towards developers. So understanding the mindset of a developer is very crucial. So anything that you build yourself, so if you walk through the process of building your own applications, building um, trying to connect other incompatible systems with each other, I think just going through that process and going through documentation, knowing what is well documented, knowing what is poorly documented, knowing all of these differences and what it takes for people to get started is, I think, very uh, crucial in terms of just understanding that developer perspective. Because then once you go through that um, yourself, then you're able to see what would attract other developers to that. If you make
Mm,
things again easy to understand, easily digestible, if you make it more in line with the car mechanic analogy, where
mm,
you don't expect that a developer a an entire car, rather that they would take whatever's existing and they're there to fix or add on to additional implementation. So,
mm,
like for example, you have a car, but you want it to go 20% faster, and then here's what you do with the engine in order to provide that additional horsepower. Or maybe like there's additional problems like the type of gas that you use, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is what is more in alignment for developers. And I think that if you market just like, hey, come build a car on our platform, that's stuff that's sounds like it's going to be too hard. Sounds like it's just not going to pay off in terms of the effort that they're putting in. But if it's like something concrete, something specific, something that then would give them that reward that they can use in other areas, and it looks interesting enough. I think that would be essential for attracting and bringing people into the space. So just understanding
mm,
that DevRel is marketing to developers, and understanding that there are common problems that occur in every single flow within a developer. And so your goal as a DevRel is just to understand where those main pain points are and try to
mm,
find creative solutions, either by through tutorials, through like having these guides, or by providing additional incentives for um, getting people to look at these creative solutions. So you got to make it worthwhile for them in the end
mm.
to come to
Yeah,
you. Just as marketing is, you have to make it um, very beneficial for the end user, for the consumer to come use your platform. In the same way, you have to make it very useful or beneficial for the developer to come to and use your product.
exactly. Yeah, essentially this means find where are the pain points, then create content that solves those pain points and then share it with the developers and with the world so that you can help people to do stuff, right? So thank you so much, Pavel, for having this conversation with me. Time was like it was so fast, but I am going to make sure to invite you to another episode so that we can talk more about like kind of like the technical stuff that we couldn't cover today. But thank you so much for joining us today and have a nice rest of the day.
Awesome, thank you. You as well.